Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Tuesday, December 15th, 2021. I should say it's Wednesday. I've lost track of the days. Yesterday was Tuesday. Anyway, Brian Edwards is going to join us coming up in just a moment. We'll talk college football and the Bulls and a lot of other stuff we'll hit on with Brian. This COVID stuff really busting out everywhere in the NFL. The Cleveland Browns with a lot of positive tests. Baker Mayfield, the most recent one this morning. They play the Raiders coming up on Saturday. So that's something to monitor and see if how these leagues handle this moving forward. But before we get to Brian, I want to tell you about BetMGM. They're the king of sports books. And a great deal now for new players only. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line. And if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Again, new players only, must be 21 years or older to play, and legal in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sports books. All right, let's bring on our buddy Brian Edwards. And Brian, before we get to NFL, college football, the Bulls, last night, Steph Curry breaks Ray Allen's record for most three-pointers in the history of the game, and he's still got a long way to go in his career, so he's really going to obliterate that record. Your thoughts on that? I mean, Steph just needed two. You knew he was going to get it eventually, but it's not even that Steph is the greatest shooter of all time, that he's one of the greatest players of all time. He's not just a shooter.
And most exciting. I mean, I remember – first time I saw him as a true freshman at Davidson, I was like, oh, my God, this kid weighs 120 pounds dripping wet. But you saw that jumper. And, Dell Curry was one of the, best three-point shooters of his era, too, and had range like me and Al Dillard. I'm not being facetious there, K-Raj. Don't
I know you're not. You have the range. You have Craig Hodges' range.
Better than Craig Hodges. Me and Al Dillard, 40-footers. But anywho, yeah, and then that sophomore year, that magical run in the Sweet 16, I'll never forget. Well, first off, they were down by like 17 to Georgetown in the round of 32, and he carried them back. But I'll never forget, I was doing the Power Hours, my old VI show. I was doing it back when Micah was at Sunset Stations, and they had a nice little radio booth. And Andy Isco was there, and they were playing Wisconsin that night at Ford Field in Detroit, and Isco, and I'm not trying to rag on Isco, but he was like, Davidson doesn't really play in these big stadiums. And, the backdrop for a shooter, when you're in a big stadium, it's so much different. He goes, I don't know how Steph Curry's going to shoot the threes. I go, Andy. It doesn't matter if they're in the old Coliseum in Rome. Steph Curry's going to be draining threes all night. They're up by like 20 at halftime, and they roll. And then Kansas double teams him in the Elite Eight on the last possession. He made the right play, threw it to Jason Richards, his great point guard, but Richards didn't really have time to get a good look at it. They lose by one to the eventual national champ, but they were this close. They could have won it all that year.
And you know what, too? You talk about the stadiums that for the Final Four, the Elite Eight, and I remember UConn, who's a big-time team, they struggled to score against Butler, and even Duke struggled at times. Like, a lot of these teams,
worst national title game ever, UConn Butler, horrible.
But it's not just Davidson that would struggle; it's everybody that struggles in these stadiums.
Sure, Steph didn't struggle though against Wisconsin that night.
No, it's crazy, and also you're playing that elevated court too. You're not even playing. You know that you're not even playing like really. It's not the backdrop. You're playing on like this weird court that's not normal. But
Izzo would get his chair up. He would get the sliding chair on the.
I remember that. That's like the Bob Huggins chair that he has on the sidelines. Yes. He's like in a doctor's office. But anyway, so quickly before we talk about football, now Alvin Gentry, the coach of the Kings, he tested positive for COVID. Sacramento, they canceled their shoot-around today against Washington. What do you think about all of this and what these leagues should do? Because now we're seeing in the NFL a lot of teams in the COVID protocol, like major, like 7 teams. You're vaccinated, you test positive. We're going to keep going like this? Because my question is this, Brian, what happens when the playoffs come? And the NFL is the next playoffs to be here. What happens then? Are you going to Are you going to kick players out of the Super Bowl? Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the answers, but I know that I don't give a damn what politically correct Joe Biden Democrats think. But I mean, look, I mean, they're not getting sick. None of these elite athletes are going to die of COVID. I don't know what the answer is. I know as bettors, we got to be careful, though. We got to be really careful, especially this week in the NFL. I wouldn't be putting in many plays early because, obviously we may have people, popping up last minute. I think as gamblers, it's kind of sketch city and caution galore. But yeah, I don't have the answers for what the league should do, but it will suck if, people, miss playoff games and stuff like that, because it's all a little ridiculous. If you ask me.
It just gets to a point where if, let's just say, it's the Bucs and the Patriots in the Super Bowl, you're going to test everyone before, and then Tom Brady tests positive before the Super Bowl and say, Tom, you got to sit. Like, you're not ruining those ratings.
I say we don't test.
Yeah, just okay. After the fact, like the Justin Turner thing with the Dodgers. Oh, you were sick. Oh, they won the World Series. Okay, it's now over with. Who cares? It's done with now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Now let's go to college football, and we got the Bulls coming up this weekend. I want to get to something first because you're going to talk about Western Kentucky in a minute. I want your thoughts on this. So Bryce Young wins the Heisman. Fine, he was great this year, and you saw that you had C.J. Stroud of Ohio State, Hutchinson from Michigan, and Kenny Pickett from Pitt were in New York. Why wasn't Bailey Zappi ever in the conversation for the Heisman? Why is that a ridiculous thing? He led the country in touchdowns. He led the country in passing yards. I get he's in Conference USA, but why is his name not even discussed in that?
Well, when you're at a group of 5 and you get off to a 1-4 start, there you go. That's why. But I mean, he should have been. I mean, he obviously did a great job. I mean, I remember talking about him in the preseason. I said to bet Western Kentucky to win Conference USA, which obviously didn't happen, but you could have hedged with UTSA going off as the underdog in that championship game and made a profit. Yeah, I mean, it was all set up. They had 3 of his receivers from Houston Baptist. They had his OC from Houston Baptist. And, Tyson Helton only signed 4 freshman players just so he could raid the portal with 19 guys, most of them from Power 5. So, but when they lost by 3 at Army. I mean, that was a televised game. I watched a lot of it on CBS Sports Network. I was at the bar watching UFC. I don't know if the Indiana game was televised, but they lose by 2. And then Indiana's season goes in the toilet. They lose Penix and their Tuttle, the quarterbacks. But look, there's no shame in 2 losses to UTSA, who finished 12-1. There was no shame in the loss at Michigan State by 48-31. Because they went 10-2, but that 1-4 start just buried him. But yeah, he should have been getting a little more shine for sure. But he'll get that on Saturday. All indications are that he's going to play. And good news for Western Kentucky, their star receiver Mitchell Tinsley, who has already entered the transfer portal, and he had a huge season with. Oh, yeah, here we go. He had 137 receptions for 1,718 yards and 14 touchdowns, and their 2-time All-Conference USA offensive tackle Mason Brooks. Both are in the portal, but Tyson Helton said yesterday they're both playing in the bowl game, even though they're in the portal after, when the season concludes. So I like Western Kentucky +3. Corey Sutton's out for App State. Also, let's like Western Kentucky on the money line. Corey Sutton is App State's best receiver, 61 catches, 904 yards, 7 touchdowns. 24 career touchdown catches in 35 career games. He's out. He had surgery. And the Tops are 7-1 straight up, 6-2 against the spread since they fell to 1-4 with a 52-46 loss at UTSA. And all 7 of those wins came by 15 points or more. I think they beat App State outright Saturday.
Yeah, this is the Boca Raton Bowl at 11 a.m. And a couple notes on this. Number 1, the Conference USA Championship in San Antonio, UTSA was rolling in that game, and Western Kentucky came back. They got it within a 1-score game, and Zappi had 500-something yards passing. They still had a shot at the end, and time ran out on them. but they closed as a favorite, Brian, in that game at UTSA, lost outright. Now, Appalachian State in the Sun Belt against your guy Billy Napier, Louisiana beat them. App State had some chances there, and they just couldn't cash in. But now App State's favored again, and Western Kentucky flipped from a favorite in the Conference USA Championship to now an underdog here. Zappy, we know what kind of offense they have in Western Kentucky. I'm on your side on this one, that I think Western Kentucky, they want to close things out because they did have a good second half of the season. They just had problems with UTSA. And App State, I don't know how much they have left in the tank after losing that Sun Belt championship.
Yeah, I mean, that was just, not very long ago at all. And it was the second loss of the year at UL Lafayette. They do have a very good defense. But their numbers are all better. Like, they're 17th in the nation in total D, 19th against the run, 16th in scoring D. I mean, they're still good against the pass, but they are number 31 against the pass. So it is, they don't really have many weaknesses on defense, but the pass defense is the worst part of their D, which doesn't bode well against Western Kentucky.
So we have two games Friday. It is Toledo, Middle Tennessee State, the Bahamas Bowl, Coastal Carolina, Northern Illinois, the Cure Bowl, and then a bunch of games on Saturday. Besides App State and Western Kentucky, anything else that's catching your eye in those early bowl games with a lot of mid-majors?
Well, I wrote down some notes just as I started to look at Toledo, Middle Tennessee. Toledo's won 3 in a row and 4 of its last 5, both straight up and against the spread. The W's were by 35, 12, 32, and 19-point margins. The over's on a 4-0 run for the Rockets, and they have been a double-digit favorite 6 times, and they're 4-2 against the spread in those roles, whereas Middle Tennessee is 2-5, both straight up and against the spread as an underdog. As double-digit underdogs, they're 1-4, both straight up and against the spread. So just on those numbers, I would probably lean to Toledo, but I need to do a little more research on those, investigate potential opt-outs, and I would just advise all gamblers, and as much as, especially at VI, we'd like to have our picks out early so our customers have them on the shelf for a while, but it's almost most prudent to, I remember some bowl games where you turn on the TV, there hadn't been nothing on the internet, nothing on Twitter from a beat writer, and 5 minutes before the kick, ESPN goes down to the sideline reporter, 8 guys are out. I mean, that happens all the time in bowl games, and now the trend that I believe it was Christian McCaffrey started 5 or 6 years ago is now just everybody opts out. I mean, the Gators have got tons of opt-outs. I can talk about some more opt-outs and opt-ins as we get into the conversation later, but just as a general warning, you got to watch out for that. Not just guys that want to be high draft picks, but guys just bolting for the portal and guys unmotivated with coaching changes, etc.
Well, one of those too, we talked about it during we did the best bet video last week, and you were pretty high in Louisiana Lafayette against App State and the Sun Belt because of Billy Napier. He took the Florida job. And you figured, all right, this team's going to be pretty motivated in his final game. Now he's out at Louisiana. He's now the coach of the Gators. But Louisiana Lafayette and Marshall in the New Orleans Bowl on Saturday night, Brian, this is what I'm curious about. Marshall ended up losing the Conference USA, an opportunity to go to the Conference USA Championship by losing to Western Kentucky. Okay. Now you're getting Marshall getting 5 against Louisiana Lafayette, kind of a home game at the Superdome, you want to say. But now with Napier gone, you kind of wonder, was that Sun Belt Championship their title game in a sense for the season? And now it's just kind of like, all right, this game doesn't mean as much, and Marshall will be kind of motivated to end on a high note?
I get that train of thought, and I don't necessarily disagree with it because Napier has taken, I want to say 3 of his UL Lafayette coaches with him. But they did stay in-house with the new head coach. It was one of Napier's assistants. So I think that bodes well for their motivation. He's now the head guy. And this is a team that, has won 12 games in a row. Whereas, you look at Marshall, this is a team that went 7-5 straight up, 6-6 against the spread. Not only did they lose at home to Western Kentucky, they got bombed by 32. And, they lost 2 of their last 3, also lost to UAB at home. I'm not saying I'm definitely on UL Lafayette, but my lean is that way.
Now let's go to the gas. You going to the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa?
No, I won't be making it, Cameron.
Oh, sorry, that's beneath you. It could only be like a New Year's Day bowl. Again, the Gasparilla Bowl. Brian Edwards can't go, even though it's close to you. Come on, man.
Oh my God! Wait a second now.
You're not playing the Potato Bowl. I mean, this is close to you.
I didn't condescend the question. I just
no. You're like Gasparilla Bowl.
I was
not going to ask you if the game was at Tropicana Field because I know you'd say no to that one. At least it's at Raymond James.
Right.
God, you guys with your Gators. You think you're so much better than everybody else.
Hold on. It is like 6-hour drive from me. But anyhow.
Really?
No. Oh, my God. I'm 2 hours west of Tallahassee.
Right.
Yeah. So, anywho.
If it was the Outback Bowl, would it be different?
No. God, no.
Oh, sorry. That's right. It's got to only be the Sugar Bowl. Sugar or Orange are the only ones you're making the trip to down here.
Playoff, Sugar Bowl, or Peach Bowl. Those are the only ones.
Fine. Camping World Bowl. Oh, my God. I don't want to ask you about the Camping World Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl now in Orlando.
Right.
So what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I think it's UCF or pass. I mean, Anthony Richardson's out for Florida. Zachary Carter's out for Florida. Best pass rusher. Jacob Copeland, leading receiver, is out. Mohamed Diabate, leading tackler, is out. I mean, we still have 9 days or 8 days till the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's more opt-outs. It's Emory Jones. UCF will be much, 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 much more motivated than Florida. It's UCF or pass in my mind. But I haven't really followed UCF or watched them since that Memphis Friday night game, whenever that was, late October.
Well, and also the Dylan Gabriel injury obviously derailed their season, and UCF was up and down. I mean, I guess the expectations weren't very high this year. I mean, what do you think of Malzahn this year? And any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, he got dealt a bad break. I mean, not only did Gabriel get hurt on a meaningless play on the last play of the game, but that pick six. I mean, they should have won that game. They were 10 yards from field goal range to win that game. Not only did they lose that game, they lose Gabriel. So, I mean, it was kind of just a lost season from there. Now, I saw some stuff on Twitter. Apparently, he's already having a good day, and they're anticipating this being the best recruiting class in UCF history. So, any judgments on Gus this year, I think, are unfair. I think Gus is going to do a good job there, and I think they should be pleased to have him.
Yeah, look, they make the short trip from Orlando to Tampa down I-4, and again, much bigger game in the grand scheme of things for UCF than for Florida because they don't get to play each other that often. And Florida's playing in Tampa for the second time this year. They won at USF earlier this year, so there's going to be a big Gator crowd. We know that, but for UCF, this is a bigger game, bigger motivational spot for them than for Florida. Florida's got bigger fish to fry in the future.
Yep, that is the truth. UCF or pass, and I might be on UCF.
All right, let's go to some bigger games now, not these pre-Christmas games that we're talking about. Georgia, Michigan, the Orange Bowl, Brian. And number one, I guess, Georgia obviously knows. Kirby knows, all right, Alabama's on deck. Alabama's not losing to Cincinnati. They've had their problems with Alabama. Kirby can't beat Saban. Not to say that they're losing this game outright because of that, but you got to get over this hump against Michigan, who's a pretty good team. And I don't think Jim Harbaugh, this is the last stop for him because Harbaugh can solidify that legacy with just getting to the national championship. So Michigan beats Ohio State. They beat Iowa, and now they're a dog against Georgia.
Yeah, I made the number 7. Man, I'm kind of in a wait and see mode. I want to see what Kirby if he's gonna make a QB change. I think at the minimum, my guess right now, and we're still a long way from kick, is that he will start Stetson Bennett, but he'll have Stetson Bennett on a short leash, which I think would be a mistake. I think that Michigan's pass rush, you need Stetson Bennett and his elusiveness. His strength is his ability. That dude can move, man. He can scramble, and that's going to be needed with Hutchinson and the other outstanding DN and that fierce Michigan pass rush. And look, we saw how Georgia played in a close game. They were accustomed to just blasting people early and often in their first 12 games. And, we talked about it how is Stetson Bennett going to react when he needs to go get a touchdown in the third quarter when they're in a one-possession game? And not that it was all on Bennett, but the whole team just didn't react well. And I think this is going to be another close game. Right now I'm undecided on it. Yeah, I'm undecided.
Okay, that's fine. Still a ways to go. All right, the second game, the Cotton Bowl, right? Alabama, Cincinnati. And, I mean, look, the Cincinnati hang in this one. I mean, can they hang? I mean, I think we all know Alabama, their history in this semifinal of the playoffs. They've blown everyone out they played. I mean, maybe not. They didn't get the cover against Notre Dame last year. But I think you had first half last year against Notre Dame in that game in Dallas. They're back in Dallas again. The Cincinnati, can they hang in this one, or is this just going to be another proof of, these group of 5 teams can't hang with the big boys?
I think they're gonna hang around for a while, and I think the loss of Mechie is huge for Bama, and that helps Cincy. And I think the best part of Cincy's defense is their secondary. I think they will hang for a little while, but over the course of 4 quarters, I think that Alabama will cover. I think that, and I even see now one book has gone to 14. I think if you like Cincinnati, I think you just chill. I think it'll get to 14 across the board, maybe even a touch north of that. Not anytime soon, but as we get closer to kickoff, possibly. And I think if you like Alabama, you go ahead and play it now. I already have fired down on Alabama with a big bet, -7 in the first half. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think Cincy will hang around for a while. But I think Alabama will be up by 10 to 14 at half. And I think they'll win by 17 to 24.
Quickly on elsewhere in the bowl games, as far as you talk about players opting out, with the coaching changes at some of these schools, you look at like Oklahoma, for instance, with Lincoln Riley now gone to USC, and Venables comes in. Obviously, he's not going to coach the bowl game. Napier's not going to coach the bowl game for Florida. How do you judge that with some of these teams that now have the change of head coach? This isn't a new thing, Brian, but as far as we see so many different coaching changes, and now, and I've said this before, which I hate to use the term, you basically have 3 meaningful games, 2 semifinals and a championship. You have 38 exhibition games.
Yeah. That's true. Now with Oklahoma, you've obviously got the similar situation with Oregon, and Kayvon Thibodeau is, might be the number, or definitely a top 3 pick, and he's already opted out. And Stoopsy's around that program. I think he still has an office in the building, and he's coaching that game. So I think the motivation might be a little slanted toward Oklahoma. And other teams, there's so many other teams that with coaching changes, like Virginia and SMU both, but I think Virginia is more motivated in that one because Mendenhall is still with the team and he's just burnt out. He's resigning, retiring, what have you. Whereas SMU already checked out when they knew Dykes was going to TCU, and we saw that with that piss poor performance against Cincinnati. Orgeron, yeah. Well, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but LSU's got a weird situation because Max Johnson and Miles Brennan are already in the transfer portal, so their only scholarship quarterback is Garrett Nussmeier, who is still practicing with the team, but he's already played 4 games. So if he plays, he has to burn his red shirt. Now, the interim head coach had some quotes for the media yesterday that they're going through some process. I think they're trying to appeal to the NCAA and get him to allowed to play, but not burn the red shirt. But depending on how that all works out, if Nussmeier doesn't want to burn his red shirt, they have nothing but walk-on quarterbacks for that game. But now on the other side, Skylar Thompson, now that's the latest bowl game there is, January 4th. So we still have tons of time, but Skylar Thompson is injured right now, has not practiced with the team. And, we'll know more about that in a couple of weeks, and don't have to know about it for a couple of weeks, but they might not be up without their star quarterback as well.
Well, the team that's actually in a really good shape, I think, is Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma State, because Marcus Freeman now is the head coach, and he just slides right over, and it's the best transition of any of them, I'm sure. And they'd be like Brian Kelly later, and even with Oklahoma State, the way they lost to Baylor in the Big 12 championship, that you kind of wonder how motivated is that team.
And Oak State has lost their defensive coordinator, who was, I think, didn't he win the best assistant in the country? He should have. But now Notre Dame has lost their two best players. Kyron Williams, the running back, and safety Kyle Hamilton have pulled out of the bowl game to turn pro. So they'll be without two key players. But Oak State will be without their defensive coordinator. And I'm not sure about the stud running back who was only able to play like 2 plays against Baylor in the Big 12 championship. I'm not sure if he's opted out or is going to be healthy. So that'll be something to monitor. Again, that one's not till New Year's Day, so we got a couple weeks on that one.
Oh, so many bowl games. So many to keep an eye on. Brian Edwards, you can check him out on Twitter at VegasBEdwards. And
can I share one pick?
Yeah, sure you can.
All right. I love the Vols against Purdue because David Bell and Karlaftis have already opted out, and those are their two best players. Bell, 93 receptions, 1,286 yards, 6 touchdowns for Purdue this year. And Karlaftis, 41 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 8 QB hurries, 5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 passes broken up, 1 block kick, 1 56-yard scoop and score. Going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. Those 2 guys are out. Hendon Hooker, not only is he healthy, going to be able to play, he's returning next year, 26-3 TDI and T ratio. This game is in Nashville, the Music City Bowl. It's a home game, not essentially, as a matter of factly, it's a home game for Tennessee, and they're very excited and motivated. You know, Josh Heupel, all those players that they lost to the portal, they were 3-7 last year. They go 7-5. They win 6 games by 24 points or more. I like Tennessee -4. If your number's 4.5, I'd buy the hook. I consider 4 a key number, like 3, 7, 10, 14, etc.
Well, and also too, and Heupel's obviously staying put. He's not going to Oklahoma. You know, I'm sure his name was rumored for that. And Purdue, they had 2 big upsets this year, and you kind of wonder now. All right, now you're just a short underdog. That they were big dogs against Iowa and against Michigan State, and they end up getting those wins. So you kind of wonder now if they peaked. And now you mentioned a couple of their top players out. In Tennessee, they want to finish on a strong note. In Tennessee, look, they got a ways to go, but in that SEC East, where we know Georgia's the class right now, Florida had a down year. Kentucky was good, but then some of these other teams, Missouri wasn't good. South Carolina was That Tennessee is just trying to make that move, and this is an important game for them.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, look, I think their fans are ecstatic that they went 7-5. To go 8-5, win a bowl game against a Big Ten team in the city where most of your alumni base is. That would really be a very, very nice. I mean, if you would have told Tennessee fans in August, you'll go 8-5, basically get a home bowl game in Nashville, and you'll kick Purdue's ass, who had a good year. Every single Tennessee fan on the planet would have taken that in a heartbeat. Boom. Give me that.
All right. We'll keep an eye on that as well. Brian Edwards, you could find him at Vegas Insider, and his college football picks, NFL, NBA, college basketball, all that good stuff. Brian, we appreciate it as always. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, K-Raj. Happy holidays.
All right, you too. There is Brian Edwards, who always puts in good work, and he won't admit it. He's too good for the Gasparilla Bowl. He knows that for watching the Gators all these years. But UCF, that's a huge game for them. Going from Orlando to Tampa, an hour and a half, 2-hour drive west on I-4. And obviously the Gators will have a ton of fans there from Gainesville. I mean, it's a perfect setup. You're not going to have 2 random teams in that bowl and not get a turnout. I mean, a lot of these, we have North Carolina and South Carolina playing, in the Belk Bowl, right? You need to localize some of these bowls. Yeah, they're playing in Charlotte, North Carolina, South Carolina. So you're going to have a majority of the fans. You're going to have fans going for a drive. Same thing with Tennessee playing the Music City Bowl. that for the most part, you want to have teams that are somewhat close. I mean, I understand Iowa State is playing Clemson or Orlando. That's not exactly one. But some of these other bowls, you got to fill it out with teams that are somewhat local, and they'll get a better turnout at those games. All right, we'll look at NBA coming up in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you about WynnBET and the WynnBET mobile sportsbook app. You can download on iOS or Android devices. And when you download the WynnBET mobile sportsbook and you're a new patron, you get a $1,000 risk-free first bet with a $20 minimum first deposit and eligible sports bet. When you use the promo code VI bonus, that means if you lose your first wager, you get it back up to $1,000 as a free bet credit that you can use for another bet. The WynnBET promo code will expire soon, so make sure to grab it while you can. That is the WynnBET mobile sportsbook and must be 21 years or older to play. All right, NBA for tonight. College basketball, you only have one major conference game. That's UCF and Temple in the American. UCF laying 4.5 on the road against the Owls. And we're still, there's been some conference play in the ACC and in the Big Ten. I know the Big East gets going this weekend. You have Providence and UConn playing. And the Horizons played a few games. Missouri Valley's played a few games. The Pac-12 has played a little bit. So you're getting these conference games starting slowly, but also some of those conferences are playing huge schedules within the league. So they got to get these games in now. But you'll have probably last week of December is when we'll start conference play with a lot of these leagues. And next week with Christmas, it's going to be a bit of a slow week in college basketball. But NBA, though, a lot of issues with this COVID stuff. And you look at the Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's in the protocol. Bucks are 2-point dogs to the Pacers tonight at home. Total of 217.5. And I mentioned earlier, take for what you will when head coaches have or are in the COVID protocol. But Alvin Gentry of the Kings, Sacramento hosts Washington tonight. Washington's a short favorite there on the road. Sacramento's coming off an 0-3 road trip. And the Wizards right now laying 2. The Atlanta Hawks are very interesting because they've lost 5 straight home games, but they've won 4 in a row on the road. And they're on the road tonight in Orlando to take on the Magic, who are coming off an 0-5 road trip. Hawks are laying 8 in Orlando. They beat the Magic earlier this season, total of 223. The Cavaliers, they've covered 12 in a row. Absolutely on fire. They got the Rockets tonight, laying 8.5. Houston actually, since the 1-16 start, they're 7-2 the last 9. That's a great job there by the Rockets. Eric Gordon, though, he's dinged up. The Rockets have some injuries, but Cleveland, the best ATS team in the league. Heat and 76ers, Jimmy Butler's hurt. Tyler Hero, he's a little banged up as well. Sixers laying 7, and I wonder if the Sixers are going to have Joel Embiid play tonight, or they're going to say he's going to play and then not play. But he's questionable tonight with rib injury. Lakers and the Mavs in Dallas. Luka's still out for the Mavs. Lakers have several players in the protocol. Not LeBron, not Anthony Davis. AD is probable tonight. Again, take it for what it's worth now at this time of the day. Nuggets, Timberwolves out in Denver. Nuggets beat the Timberwolves at Target Center earlier this year in a low-scoring game. That total tonight's at 224. Clippers, Jazz rematch of that Western Conference semifinals in which Kawhi Leonard tore his ACL, but the Clippers still beat the Jazz and knocked them out of the playoffs. So Utah will be looking forward to this game, laying 9.5. Paul George questionable with an elbow injury. Grizzlies and Blazers tonight in Portland. Portland's dropped 5 straight home games. Remember, they were on fire to start the season at home. They lost to the Suns in overtime last night. But Memphis, they've been on fire. They're laying 3 at the Moda Center this evening. 4 games tomorrow in the NBA. And we'll see how this COVID stuff is handled. Because in the NFL, 7 teams are in the intense protocol stage. The Browns have a lot of issues right now with that. They play the Raiders on Saturday. And the NFL pretty much prided themselves last year on not having any games canceled. Ravens Steelers got postponed several times but was not canceled. And they want to get these games in. Again, I'm just really curious about the playoffs and how it's going to work out. That are you going to test in the playoffs and have a key player, an Aaron Rodgers, a Tom Brady, a Patrick Mahomes, one of these guys test positive and say, you're not going to play? That will be very interesting to see how the NFL handles that. BetMGM, the king of sports books. New players only. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line. And if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Must be 21 years or older to play. Legal in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That's BetMGM. They are the king of sports books. My thanks to Brian Edwards for hopping on. A lot of bowls coming up. 2 on Friday, and then on Saturday, 6 bowls starting at 11 a.m., ending at 9:15 at night. And then obviously Sunday, nothing, because they don't compete with the NFL. And then you go through next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, at least one game every day. Saturday's Christmas, the Camellia Bowl, Ball State and Georgia State. And then the following week, pre-New Year's, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're getting at least 4 bowl games a day. And then, of course, Saturday on New Year's, you're getting 5 games that day. So basically, starting Friday, taking away the Sundays, you're getting bowl games every day, and that's going to escalate coming up after Christmas. So looking forward to all of that. Again, my thanks to Brian Edwards for hopping on today and talking plenty of college football. We will be back with you tomorrow at noon. Vince Akins will join us to talk NFL and trends for the upcoming weekend. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for tuning into this edition of the Daily Insider right here on Vegas Insider. And as always, best of luck with your bets.